Alright, let's give it a second to boot up. We booted up. Let me close this. I know we good. Yes, let me click this. Go in here. We're back. Today, we're about to create a template from scratch. So I'm going to show y'all how I got to this point with my template, but from the jump. So we're going to focus on being able to mix as you go instead of trying to mix everything after you're done with the beat, because that takes too long and you'll never make what you want to make if you're too caught up trying to tweak stuff after the fact instead of just letting the creative juices flow, keeping it coming. Pause. Anyways, what I'm gonna do is mess around in here for a second, get all this shit straight. We're gonna start from like absolute scratch. So from like one of these default templates that has nothing on any track, and then we're just gonna lay it out and let it do what it do. So let me go to file, new from template. We will go club basic. Bam, because I know this shit has nothing on it at all. We got a kick, a clap, a hat, and a snare. All the dog doo sounds that come stock with FL, drum wise. You know, they got some good stock like plugins and whatnot, but that's not what we're focused on today. So with these are routed to tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and highlight these. And we are going to delete these for now. Well, I can just hit delete. Boom. Boom. Delete. So then all we have is just an empty sampler right there. Nothing else. So first things first, what I like to do is drag the BPM to whatever BPM I like to use. I'm more of a like 116 guy, but I kind of want to get out of using 116 as much, so we're going to do 112. I'm going to start this at 112. That's going to be my default project tempo. Remember, this is going to be different for everybody because it's whatever BPM you like to make beats at. Feel free to tweak this to whatever you like, but watch all the way through so that way you understand what I'm doing and what you can change to your liking. So we got the tempo set. So the next thing I would do is just highlight every track in my mixer by holding control, clicking over. Boom, everything in here. I drag down till we hit -6. So bam, -6. Why do I do that? That's because I don't want everything coming through so loud on when I route things to tracks, because then I have no room to really like blend sounds in and really get to mixing as I'm going. If it's all the way up at 0, then your headroom shot and you're not gonna get the best sound that you could, I guess. But yeah, that's why we do that. So we put everything at -6. And the next thing I want to do is I want next to my master some submaster tracks. So I want for sure one for my drums, one for my music, maybe one for vocals, and bass is an iffy one. I won't do bass, but we'll do these. So I will highlight these, right click this, dock to left. Bam, so we got these right here. I'm gonna rename these. This one's gonna be for drums. Move over. This one's gonna be for music. Move over. This one's gonna be for vocals. Bam. All right, cool. And you know what? Now that I think about it, there's something I wanted to add to my workflow. I want to add one more. So we're going to dock this to left. Bam. And then we're going to hold Alt and move this one to the back. We're going to name this one effects. So I also want all of my effects to go to one channel, and I'll set those up in a minute and show you what that looks like. But I want to do that because a lot of times when I'm adding effects to, let's say, track one, if I route it to an effects track, well, let me put up the effects tracks just to show you first. So I like to have 4. So I'm going to highlight these, dock to the right, right? So my last one, we will do reverb. The one before that, we will do delay. The one before that, we will do saturation. And then the one before that, we will do, we'll call it peak comp. So it's going to be parallel compression. I'll explain all this shit in a minute. I'm just getting it set up for now. So now back to the example I was trying to show you. If I go to, let's say, track 1, and I want some reverb, and I route it to the reverb, right? But let's say my track 1 is routed to my music channel. If I put if I route this then to the reverb, the music channel may be boosting the music on this, but it won't be boosting the reverb. So the reverb is going to be really quiet in comparison to the music channel that we got going on right here. So I kind of want to move all of these to their own effects channel. So that way I can bring them up in the mix if I need to, add some compression to maybe tighten it up. We'll see what that looks like a little bit later, but that's the general idea of adding an effects track. So then what I want to do is, for all of these, for all of my effects, I want them to hit at 0. And then for all of my pluses, I also want them to hit at 0. This is just so when we route them, we can see what's actually going on in here, right? So then there's something important that you got to do, which would be something. Where are we? How'd I get here? Let's start with this. Highlight these channels right here, and we know we want all of these to go through the effects channel. We're going to right click down here, route to this track only. So now all of our effects are routed to our effects channel. Our effects channel going straight to the master. So all of these tracks going straight to the master. Perfect, right? So yeah. Everything looks good here. Got a little notification, but we getting back to it. Yeah, so we got all of the effects going to the effects channel. We got nothing going to these channels yet. And we have our master channel right here. So we want to prep these. I know on my drum bus, always, I want God Particle. And I don't change anything on here. I literally just leave this stock. I like the way it sounds. It brings up the drums. What God Particle is really good at doing is, it's supposed to make things sound better. But what it's also really good at doing is highlighting your mistakes. So if something sounds bad, when you bring it up with God Particle, it's going to sound even worse. So this is a cheat code. So if things start to sound bad once you route them through God Particle, you know exactly what you got to fix. Whereas if you don't put God Particle on it, things can sound okay before they're all pushed up together. It's going to be harder to find your mistakes that way. I just find it a lot easier to route everything through God Particle, find those mistakes, tweak them, on the individual channels themselves. And then once it hits God Particle, it's going to sound amazing. Right? So that's the idea behind that. I always put that on my drums. Vocals, we'll leave this blank for now. Just because I don't have a default vocal chain. All vocals are different. You're working with different recordings. If you're working with an acapella, something like that, it's going to be different tools every single time. Right? On my music channel, typically what I like to do is have another God particle. Right? Now the difference with this God particle is we're going to change some things. So with this God particle, what I'm going to do is take this down to 2 decibels. So the limiter is only going to push 2 decibels. This is because I want my melodies and all my music pieces to be a little bit quieter than my drums, right? We'll come back to this when you actually do get your melodies in here, just because you're going to play with this amount here. And from what I can hear, this kind of acts as like your stereo imager. So it'll kind of spread things out a little bit, so that way your drums or other components have more room in the mix. But yeah, we'll come back to that whenever we get back to this. Boom, but for now, we'll just leave that on there. For my vocals, I will go ahead and put another God particle. JK, like I said, we don't know what we want on that yet. Now for effects, right? I've never used an effects bus before that goes out to my master, so I'm not quite sure what I want to put on here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and add a studio rack. Bam. So Wave Studio Rack, just so that way I have flexibility to just come in here and add whatever later on, right? Now on my master, we're doing the same thing. I add, where are you, my friend? Studio Rack. So again, Studio Rack on here, Studio Rack on the effects chain, and I'll probably put a Studio Rack on vocals, just not sure yet. So why I use Studio Rack is because this is just like one of the best plugins of all time. It works similar to what Patcher does in FL, but it just works cleaner for me. You can get more detailed in Patcher for sure, but with this, it just allows me to do what I need to do quick. So what I mean by that is, obviously I can load plugins in here. You can load your third-party plugins, get everything that you have, load it in here real quick, gives you extra inserts. If you run out of inserts here, you never should, because if you're doing that much processing on a sound, pick a different sound unless you're sound designing. But yeah, I can add all of my plugins directly through here. But not only that, I can do multiband. Now, what's that mean? That means I can set a frequency cutoff and it'll split from this frequency right here. So from 15K down, if I add effects on it, it's only affecting that. 15K up, only adding effects on that. And guess what? I can get even more detailed. And split it up as many times as I want, right? That's super useful if I only need to affect like maybe the highs of something, if I need to like DS something without, destroying everything else. Or if I want to, let's say, add saturation to something, but if I add saturation to the top end, it's going to sound fucking horrible because it's going to like scream at your eardrums. I could just use this, set it to the lows, add the saturation on the lows, cooking. You know what I'm saying? So super powerful plugin. It's definitely like top 5 plugins for me. Studio Rack will get you right every time, right? So we have Studio Rack on a master. So specifically on a master track, I don't do too much. What I'm gonna do here is come in here, look for L2. My bad, not L2, it's Pro L. Come on, where's Pro L? Yeah, Pro L. And I'll just leave this at default, right? And this is the sauce with the mix, but you're not gonna touch this until your beat is done. Arranged, everything sounds good, coming through your buses right here. Once all of that's good, then you'll touch this. So you come in here into Pro L2. Um, for me, I like to get a starting point that I could recognize, which for me would be this hip hop mastering preset. I kind of know what it does and can tweak accordingly to get the sound that I want. But this is gonna be how you push that loudness and how you get, your shit to smack the way you want it to. But it's only coming into play at the very end. And the secret with it is all right here in this oversampling section. So if you don't have a good CPU or strong, what do I want to say? If your computer's not him, you're not gonna be able to do this 32 right here. But it's gonna sauce it up. I usually stick around 8 and then move up to 16 if the project can handle it. What this is gonna do is it's gonna make it harder for your sounds to clip and distort. So what that means is, you know how sometimes you hit your limiter and then your kick feels flat or it gets like that distorted sound and it doesn't punch as much? This is gonna kind of help out with that. But obviously not if you're driving this shit through the wall and you see your kick is ducking super hard. It's not going to help with that. But if you hit it the right way using this, you can get that little bit of extra loudness and clarity in your mix. It's definitely going to help you out. But don't turn it on until the very end because this shit will lag your whole project out. But we're just going to leave that there for now. What else do I put on here? You want to put like a meter on here. So we'll just use a basic VU meter. Right? This is just so if you're doing like mixing instead of beat making. I mean, really, you could use this for beat making too, but this will just show you what levels you're hitting. So if you want to target a specific level in terms of the VU meter, you can make sure that you're hitting that on the way out. Right? Cool. Um, it's not much to this. I feel like we're kind of almost done. So what else can we do? We got the drum bus. I don't touch that. The music bus. What we can do here is we can add. Where are you? Stereo shifter. So if you know this plugin, you know this plugin. If you don't, I don't I don't know why. It's the best sound shifter in my eyes or ears to pitch things up and down to get a smooth sound. I usually set the mode to smooth. People don't touch this enough for the mode. This is sauce right here. Something that I do sometimes is I'll even just throw a sound shifter onto the drum track. I won't touch the pitch or anything. I'll just set this to smooth, and it just adds some extra smack and some extra weight to it for some reason. You would think it would be in like the punch or transient, but like smooth is just, it does something to the sound that's just crazy. But yeah, we can leave that on there. What I would do is I would just disable it in your template just because you don't know if you're gonna need it really. We go to vocals. We have nothing on vocals. That's cool. Effects. We got the studio rack. So if we want to put something on here, we can. If we don't need it, we don't need it. I think I'll end up leaving this blank because the thing about templates is that if you're not going to use something every single time, don't put it on your template because it's just going to take up processing power. So Studio Rack by itself, super lightweight, and if I need to add something, I can add it in here. It's also really cool with Studio Rack. Another gem with this is that you could just save your chains. So like in FL, you have to come in here, you have to save your mixer preset or whatever file, save as, and then blah blah blah. You got these right here. With this, you just save it and then recall it right in the plugin. So if you hop into Ableton, if you hop into Studio One or something else, you just pull up your chain right there. You don't gotta worry about remembering what you're using. But yeah, another quick tip, right? So now for these, so let's start with reverb. So reverb, I just use the default reverb. Pretty Convolver. Turn the dry all the way down. keep the wet right. And I keep it pushing. That's all I need for the reverb. Fruity Convolver. And then if I don't want any lows, I mean, generally that'd probably be safe. Just to duck, just pull this down, duck off past 90, just roll that off, so that way you're not building up low end with your reverb. That's it. I won't do too much with that. Delay. I need to find a better delay plugin, but I mean, can't go wrong with H delay. I'll set it to a fourth. Keep it on BPM. Set it to ping pong. Make sure this analog is off. We will mess with the low pass a little bit just so we can tell the difference. Modulation, depth and rate. Yep, all of that. I won't change anything else really. Make sure it's set to 100% wet. Your output's leveled. That's it really. I'll just leave this right here, and if I need to change some shit, I'll come in here and change some shit. But for the most part, that's it. So that's the delay. Saturation. Saturation is a tough one, right? I have a lot of different saturation plugins that I like. For saturation, it really depends on the track, what I'm gonna do with this. So I could either go like Decapitator. I could go for something like Sausage Fattener. I could go for we'll add this right here. This is a really good saturation plugin in my eyes. You kind of gotta. I can't do a whole tutorial on this, but my general settings for this is gonna be in and out, all tube. We want it flat, right? Because we don't want to make any creative decisions without knowing what we're putting through this thing, right? So I just keep it flat, put on the saturation, put it all tube. We'll crank the saturation maybe to like 60, not too hard. The pentatone and triode, that's again to taste. Is there anything else I want? I'll play between dark and normal with this, depending on what I'm saturating. Usually when I'm saturating, I want like heavier, grittier things, so I'll set it to dark by default. I guess that's fair. Parallel mix is 100%. Stereo width, mono maker. We don't want any stereo width. The output, we'll keep it the same. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much good for this. This is one of those things you gotta tweak to taste. I'll just leave this as is for right now. Come back here and tweak it as I need it. Pcomp, parallel compression. There's only one plugin that I would use for this. Only one. And that plugin is missing. There it is. I Heart New York. I love this thing. This thing is just parallel compression, the plugin. The best thing that there is. The parallel chain, by default, I'll just crank this up to half. Bank it at like 60%. We'll go a little harder because it's parallel compression. You want to really squash that thing. So we'll do that. Bam, parallel compression, done. With parallel compression though, sometimes things could get crazy. So with the parallel compression, I'll probably throw Pro Q out here. Where you at, Pro Q? Pro Q afterwards, just so I can tweak in case it gets a little too intense. Cut some frequencies that might be screaming a little bit. Yeah, I think that's it for effects. And then for drums, another thing I like to do is we will add another one of my favorite plugins that I can never find. Flywheel. Uh, Tape emulator plugin. Has some cool stuff that you can do to kind of make things hit a little less hard. And that's kind of a hard thing to describe, right? Because generally you want your shit to hit more harder. What the hell is wrong with my English today? Generally you want things to hit harder, but with this, it kind of helps you tame your drums a little bit. I put it before God Particle because, like I said, God Particle is gonna highlight that stuff. So if I need it tamed a little bit, I can go to this high frequency EQ, kind of dial that in. I can change the tape speed to 15 to kind of like cut out some of the transients that are going on, and tame the drums so that way they're not like overbearing, so that there's no room for like a vocal, or you can't hear the melody because the drums are just taking up all this space right here. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it with that. I like this Formula 2. Formula 1 and Formula 2 have different sound profiles. Formula 2 just seems to do what I want it to do better, which is kind of degrade the sound a little bit. But yeah, that's the only other thing I would put on drums. Music, we got a sound shifter, we got vocals that are empty, we got effects right here. You know what? For vocals, I'll go ahead and load up a studio rack. That's probably the best idea because, like I said, with studio rack, if I do end up making a good vocal chain for something, like a general use case, I could just load it up in studio rack, have it good to go, change them, save presets, and then swap them out as I'm doing different things like acapellas, uh, actual vocals for like a full song, uh, different things, right? So we got our effects, we got everything here. Cool. For the mixer section, I think this is gonna be it, right? I think this is a pretty good representation of that's it, right? Yeah. So then another important thing is when you're previewing your drum sounds on the side, you want to make sure that that is coming through the master. So how do we do that? Just give me a second to find. Come on. Um, Jeez. Look at me. Look at me, huh? How'd I get here? There it is. Browser preview track. I got it set to 123. We're gonna just turn this off. Make sure it hits on the master. That's gonna mess. I like to do this, right? Because then I can get this feel of what things are gonna sound like at -6. But ultimately, when you start soloing things with right click, it's gonna solo the track that you're previewing with. It's gonna mess you up. Just just leave it at default, right? Cool. So that's good. So now there's some other things we want to do, right? So with this, we're gonna move to the playlist. So in the playlist, what I'm gonna do is drag in some sounds that I know I'm always using in every project, and there's no point in me trying to drag these in every single session when I know damn well I'm going to end up dragging them back in, stretching them, doing whatever to them. This doesn't make sense for time's sake. So I know every single beat I use my gunshot tag, right? So automatically, we're gonna load that in there. Boom. I know every single beat. Most beats I use this smash sound. We'll load that in there. I know that I'm always using crash. So we'll load that in there. And what we'll do is, I know when I use this, I usually do this, right? So let me drag this in here. And I know that I usually have this at 2 bars. We'll set that to 2 bars. Bam. And I usually have this set as a riser, right? So I do that like damn near every beat, and it don't make sense for me to be doing that every beat, so we're gonna say that in the template. So what we're gonna do is go in here, right click, can we rename this? Rename. I'll call this rise. And then with this, boom, and this, we'll drag these in here real quick. I know with this sound, I always end up normalizing it. It does end up too loud most of the time, but that's okay. So what we're gonna do is come in here and then take these. So these 3 sounds I'm gonna use damn near every beat, right? So we're gonna take these, highlight them, send them to the mixer, right? For me, on my mixer, I want to have the first couple tracks be things I'm actively working with, and then anything else towards the back of the mixer, like especially these elements are usually just transition elements in a beat. So what I'm going to do is highlight them and move them all the way to, we'll just start them at 26, right? That's healthy. And then I want to make sure that these play nice together. So what I'll do is I'll come in here and then just make sure that these volumes are balanced. Also, before we do that, I know that these are always going to go to the drum track. So let's go highlight these, route them to this track only. So now these are all going to the drum track. So let's pull these down because generally they're going to be too loud. Pull them down to like 10. And let me mute my mic so that way I can hear what levels we're hitting with these. All right, cool. I like where that's sitting, so we'll leave those right there. So now I know that when I use these in future projects, they're always going to be leveled and always going to hit the right way when I need them to. So I can kind of use that as like a baseline of how I'm going to level out the rest of my beat according to these transition sounds. So those are always going to be there now. So I could just remove these and they're right here, ready to go. Every single beat. I can just drag and drop these in. I know I'm good. In the mixer, they're already routed to the right channel, routed to the drum channel, good to go. It's always going to sound good, right? So speed is a big thing. So I don't have to fumble around looking for shit when I know I'm going to use these sounds every single beat. And now I can use these sounds as a reference point of what I'm trying to do. Cool? Makes sense. So with that, those are my go-to sounds. I don't really use much else. I'm gonna be honest. Those are gonna be in every beat. So Another thing is drum sounds. So with drum sounds, ideally you want to drag in, whatever drums that you like to use the most. I'm I'm not a big fan of doing this on my templates because I like to switch it up every beat. I don't want to use the same drum sound for like 10 beats in a row unless I'm doing a specific project. But you can do that. What I do instead is I know that every track I'm going to use Serato sample and I'm going to use Loop Cloud. So we're going to go ahead and load these on the unsorted section, right? And then let me just drag in Serato sample and Loop Cloud. Let me go Loop Cloud. Where's the VST3 version? Yep, right here. Am I bugging? All right. All right, so we're going to drag in Loop Cloud. I use this all the time. There's no point in me not loading this when I know that I'm going to use it every single beat, right? So with this is going to be one of those things that I'm going to just Control L, assign it to a mixer track. I don't want it on the first track because again, I want to save that for shit that's actually, being worked on in the beat. We'll send this to track 25. With Loop Cloud, this is just gonna let me preview what's going on inside of Loop Cloud. So because it's doing that, I want it to kind of compete with the other sounds I got going on. So we'll set Loop Cloud to about -3.5, a little bit higher than the rest of these, so that way I can hear what I'm previewing and not try to like fight to hear what's going on, turn it up in Loop Cloud, and then by the time I drag it in, who knows what's going down, right? So we'll leave that at -3.5. I always use Loop Cloud, so that's got to stay in the session. What I'll do to make it a little more organized is I will go, hello. I'll go here, hit Alt up, so that way it's at the top, right? So with this sampler, for what I'm thinking with this sampler, right? I'm thinking about just making this a dummy slot for 808s. Because we all know with 808s, you have to do this. Every single beat. For your 808, you always got to do that every single beat. There's no point in doing that every single beat. So, you know what? It makes perfect sense for me to do this, right? And then we'll just rename this 808. Bam. And with the 808, I can route this to a mixer channel, right? And I'm comfortable leaving that on 1. That doesn't bother me. So with the 808 on 1, what I can do is I know that this 808 is always going to go to my drum track. Now, with the 808s, it's a musical component, so you could move it to music, but the way that I use the template is I'm always going to have my bass and my 808s processed the same way that my drums are. So that way they all live in the same space and feel like they're glued together. So I'm going to do this on my drum track. You can do it on the music track, but generally on my music track, I like to cut frequencies to make room for the drums and the vocals. So I just send it to my drum track. You can do it different though. It's all up to you. It's just the way I do it. So on the 808s, I'm going to route to this track only. Now this is going to the drum bus. Boom. Don't have to worry about it. If I want an 808, I literally just drag it over this, and this shit's already done for me, so I don't have to do anything with that. Actually, we'll hit cut self too, because I always put that on there. Bam. Cool. Right? Is there any other plugin that I always use? Yes, there is. So we're going to go in here and add one more. We're going to add Serato sample. You know me, you know this shit goes on absolutely everything. So let's drag Serato sample in. Boom. Cool, we got Serato sample. So again, we're just gonna hit Control L, send that shit to the mixer. I don't want this in the front, right? Because I want this for sounds that I drag and drop in and things like that. So what I'm gonna do is send this to 25. We're actually gonna scoot all this shit over. Boom. So that it starts on 25. Cool. All right. So with Serato sample, I know for a fact Serato sample is always gonna get. I don't know that because sometimes I use Serato sample for drums, right? So because I use it for drums sometimes, I don't know if I want to route it to my music bus. Um, but I'm gonna do that shit anyways because when I do drums, I can always just send it back. With this, we want the same thing as Loop Cloud. We want it to hit at -3 because we want to hear what we're doing when we're previewing it. I will send this to my music track. Route to this track only. Bam, Serato samples map. So Loop Cloud going to my master. This is going to my music. Am I missing anything? No. So I always use those. Let's clean this up a little bit up here. I'm gonna do is hit all up. We have Loop Cloud, Serato sample, and then we got the 808 right there. Excuse me. We good. All right, bet. So with this, I think we're almost done with this template. I'm not gonna lie. What I would do is we have all this. We have our parallel compression set up, our saturation set up, our delay set up, our reverb set up. What I would do for the 808 is I wouldn't add decapitator right away because not every beat calls for that. But I'm usually putting decapitator on that shit. I'm not gonna lie. But I'll spare you all of that because I don't think it needs that right now. Is there any other thing that I use every beat that would make sense in this template? I think that's it, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to File and hit Save as Template. Boom. We're gonna enter the template name, and then we're just gonna call this 2024 Beat Starter. Bam. I've been saved in this new template. New template is the current working project, right? So we saved the template, right? So then we want to go into our file settings. We want to go into general, and then under here, default template, we want this to be 2024 Beat Starter. Bam. So now when we open FL, that's what's coming up. Is this 2024 Beat Starter template that we just made, right? Let's see here. Is there anything else that we should add to this? I don't think so. So just a quick recap. What we did is we made our drum bus, our music bus, our vocal bus, and our effects bus, right? All of these four are routed to the master, right? And then we have our effects over here on the right. We dock these. We got our parallel compression, saturation, delay, and reverb. Just shit that we use on a regular basis so we can get these off without having to keep loading in plugins. Those are all going to the effects channel, which is going to the master channel, right? And we got our most used sounds. So I use Loop Cloud every beat. I use Serato sample every beat. And I use these 3 transition sounds every beat. These transition sounds are all routed to the drum bus. So that way I don't have to guess and level things when I'm making beats. I have a baseline of where shit should be and how loud it should be. I have these routed right here. Serato samples routed to my music bus because typically I'm chopping samples. We got Loop Cloud routed to the master because that could be anything from samples to perk loops to just auditioning sounds. And then that's it, right? So the rest of this shit is just a playground. But I like to keep this healthy. And then of course we got the 808 track going into the drum track. We did this. There's no 808 here, but we have this boxed out so that way if we want, we could just drag an 808 in here and we don't got to worry about boxing shit out. Cool? Cool. All right. So, we save the template. Everything's done. We put the plugins that we wanted on these channels. These channels as well. Like I said, drum bus. I'm just using Flywheel, God Particle, music bus, sound shifter, God particle, vocals, studio rack, effects, studio rack, master channel, studio rack with a meter at the end, and Pro L2, just to sauce it up once the beat's done. That's it. That's it. Just using this shit right here, all of this by itself, is gonna make you twice as fast at making beats. It's gonna make your beats sound twice as good because they're gonna be damn near mixed as you're going along. Um, it's just mad simple. Let me. I already got this saved, so what I'm gonna do is close FL. I'm gonna reopen it, and then we're going to just fuck around with this template. Let me close FL. Reopen FL. Gonna load the template. Damn, and we right back to it, baby. All right. So this is the template. We got everything running. Let's just make some shit. Let's see what comes out of it. How long we been streaming right now? We've been streaming for about 46 minutes. But I'm gonna go for like another hour. So what we could do is just start cooking. So I'm gonna drag this over here. Let's get Loop Cloud active. Booting up the Loop Cloud. All right, we're booted up. All right, so for this, I kind of want to go through some of my new samples and find something to chop up, and then I'll show off the workflow in this. So we go to library. I'll turn off the connection to FL just so that I can hear what the samples sound like for real instead of stretched to the tempo, because that's not always what I want. Go to samples. Just got a bunch of these Boom Bap Labs libraries. See what these are hitting for. Alright, I'm gonna mute my mic so that way we can start cooking. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. So I'm gonna chop this up and then see what we can get out of this. Alright, so I'm gonna cut the mic back on. I feel like we got a good bass line for the beat. It's in B minor. So what we could do is just hop back into loop cloud. And then I can bring this out. And then lock this to B minor, connect it back to FL, and then start building with that sample loop. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate Serato sample. I'm going to eject the sample from this instance of Serato sample. And I like this sample, but I don't like the drums, so we're gonna use Serato sample to get rid of those drums. We are going to boost the volume of this. That way we can hear it, because it's relatively low. We could just do that by going in here, level adjustment, boosting the volume. We are going to, this is at F minor, right? So we're going to find samples. Turn the sync off. And then set this to like 97. Let's see what that sounds like. And then set this to B. 2 bars. We will drag this down here. I don't like how heavy that is, so we're gonna take this down. Route this to our drum track only, and then let's take it to 4 bars. See how that sounds. Maybe just sample start. B. Let's see. Let's go ahead and add some snares. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. Might just cut it here. I got a couple things I gotta take care of, but yeah, that was the basis of it. Just showing y'all how to work the mixing template, showing y'all what it does, how it makes your workflow faster, X Y Z. But thank y'all for tuning in. For those of y'all who did tune in, I appreciate y'all. Take care.